Well, last Sunday in my last video I said that it was good to get the shed tidied up because, well, it's nice when it's raining and cold, and today I'm glad I got the shed sorted out because it's pretty misty rain out there today, and this is the best part of the next few days, just that, you know, misty rain. But forecast for this afternoon and tomorrow is some pretty torrential stuff, so I'm just going to make the most of this morning for an hour or so and see what I can get done. There's a few things on my agenda, but first, a cup of coffee. Well, I've got a pretty interesting problem here. There's a bit of a growing concern that the rockery plants that I've got in here are going to suffer because of the density of this foliage from the squash and pumpkins. So a bit of investigation to see before I pull it all apart, and I'm surprised actually it's looking very healthy. I'll show you. So I guess these leaves are opaque. There will be some light getting down to the rock level. Just looking in there at those rock plants, they look incredibly healthy. In fact, they were beginning to get a little bit sort of sun bleached before this grew over the top. So I'm really pleased to say that they're doing okay, because the thought of untangling and perhaps moving to the sides all this foliage was beginning to bother me. It's not going to be an easy task, so I'm very pleased that things seem to be doing okay, and it won't be too much longer now before this foliage starts to wilt. And we've got some great pumpkins on the ends of these enormous vines. Look at that beauty. So he's coming on well, and we've got another one over here. In fact, there are loads of them, and I'm just hoping that we're going to have a bumper squash and pumpkin crop this year. Let's go and have a look at my prize sugar pumpkin, which I'm really excited about. Just gets bigger every single day, of course. Yeah, and there it is. It's gone from a pale green to a really dark green, but it's really putting on some weight now. And I notice there's another small one coming there, so that's good news. And all of a sudden they're springing up everywhere, and this one's absolutely amazing, beautiful. I can't see any on this bit of the patch, but they're certainly starting to form on the ends where I terminated the stems in favour of growing bigger pumpkins. So all going well on those. And the other day I pointed out to you that I was having problems with my purple sprouting broccoli over on this side of the plot, which surprised me because I'd had no real damage there for, well, weeks. So I planted in 2 new plants next to the others, and I was expecting there to be damage on this one and the subsequent ones, given that it seemed to be travelling down the bed. So I put these 2 in, and they seem to be okay, and I'm beginning to suspect another problem, and that is this girl here. No, not this girl, the other one. Where is she? She's run away. But I think the other day when I met her out there, which was a surprise, she'd managed to hop this little fence and decided to tuck in to my purple sprouting broccoli. So at least it's good to get to the point where you know what happened, and hopefully that means that the others won't come to too much harm. Is decided that she'd come in here and avoid me. Yes, I know what you're up to. So these dibbers that we use for pricking out come in very handy. They're almost perfectly teaspoon size. Right, we'll get this cup of coffee underway, and then I'm looking at our run of beans because they were just poised, ready to be picked. And last night I had a quick look round and managed to get a good handful for tea. So I just want to make sure that I pick them fairly quickly, because the general consensus is, in this cooler weather that we're having, rather than the warmth of August, you can find that if you leave your beans a little bit too long, they get a bit stringy and a bit tough. So it's best to get them while they're still really nice and tender. So that's going to take some cooling down. I'll get and see what we've got in that bean row, see if there's anything more. Right, so let's get in amongst here. And I did skirt through, as I said, and pulled out quite a few beans, and they just hide, but they're absolutely perfect now because you can see there's no dark areas on each of these beans. And there, you know, there's a handful, and they're all perfectly sort of lime green colour, and you can tell they're tender. Nothing rough about the skins. In fact, if you scrape it with your nail, it can just bruise it. So that's perfect. I'm going to work my way through and see what I can crop. Well, that was a pleasant surprise. There's a fantastic crop of really nice, tender, fairly lengthy beans to be had at the moment. And I suspected a few days ago, when I started to see the clusters getting a little bit bigger, that all of a sudden there was going to be a picking frenzy, and that's exactly what we've got. And I started picking these thinking we'll have a few for tea, and now as I was going through I was thinking freezer bag time. So a bit of preparation to do when I get back home. Good times. Well, I'm getting my gauntlets on this morning. I want to take this net off, which has been over these parsnips for some time now. The net, I guess it does protect the foliage, but its main purpose is to keep the cats off while they're getting established, and they've hit the top of the net now. But I've got this enormous stinging net up here, which is going to come out just so that I don't get stung while I'm doing this job, because invariably I do, and it sort of lasts with me for ages. It's funny how stingers affect people differently. I know that Mrs. K, if she gets stung, it goes on for, well, at least a whole day. For me, it's a few hours. There's one more over there, which I think I'm going to get rid of. And that makes it all a bit more sting resistant for me. So out he goes. I'll take the bricks off of this and see what we've got underneath. Now, if you remember, looking back at my older videos, I did have one plant in here that suffered during the really warm weather, and it'd be interesting to see whether that's survived or in fact has disappeared, which is often the case when they get damaged. So last brick, and then this net will go away and won't be out till next winter. Give me a chance to weed a little bit as well. Look at that fella. I'm not growing those. Right, put that over there for a minute. Got a snail in there. Okay, so it's looking good. The plant that was damaged was in here. Yeah, and I don't think, well, I don't know. I think that might be it there, just a little bit smaller than the others, but they're looking really healthy. So I'm going to go through, get some weed out, and hopefully they'll grow on nicely. They're certainly becoming fairly substantial plants now. One or two have got a little bit of leaf damage. I'll show you. So these are healthy leaves, nice and green and lush. And then in here, I've got this yellow spotting, which I've not seen before. It doesn't seem to be doing the plant any harm. There's a little bit more on that one. And over here, slightly different, but again, yellow patches. Now, I'm not sure what that is. As I say, I don't think it's doing any harm. So, just going to clean the bed up and then go from there. Well, coffee's drinkable now. I was going to show you out this vent that I made in the shed. It's a bit surprising, or maybe it's not. It's different for me anyway. Never happened before. You'll probably say, well, I've seen it happen a lot and these plants grow very vigorously and it's not unusual. But just have a look out this vent. So I put these vents in just to give the chickens some air when it's warm. And this is that squash plant that's growing over the pond. How incredible. And there's even a small squash developing on the end of it. Got a bit of a stinging nettle there as well. But that area is really not working very well for me. It's just so overgrown, and there's black currant bushes in here which have not fruited particularly well. This one's a red currant. You can see some fruit down there. But once it gets those stinging nettles in there, it's really hard to get to. And there you can see that squash plant, and I think it might even be heading over the roof, which will be certainly a first for me. This rack that I made a couple of years ago, it's just a sort of basket really. But it's perfect this time of year for drying seeds off or pods. So in here I've got the very best of my broad bean pods. I had a great crop of broad beans this year. So I put them in here and they effectively get air dried over the coming weeks. That just hangs up there. And then when I think they're really dry enough, that one's getting quite hard on the outside, then I'll switch them out. And if there's anything else like runner beans that needs to go in there, then that'll dry. So I made that out of some chicken wire. It took a little while and it was a bit of a fun project, but certainly turned out to be really useful. Well, I'm going to show you my Hugelkultur bed again because, as you know, I had lots of shooting black currant and privet twigs, and that was a real mistake putting those into the Hugelkultur bed. So I've pulled all that out, and I just wanted to do a quick update to show you what it's looking like now. Just go and have a look. So the general advice was get those shoots out because they'll just continue to sprout and you'll have problems forevermore. So out they came, and I've left in, well, just a mixture, and I just want to see whether there's any more shoots coming. I can see one there. It's actually a broken one, so it's probably come off of the old stuff that I took out. Well, there's another one now. That's definitely got shoots on. So I think I'm going to just keep turning this over through the next few months, making sure that I capture everything, and hopefully anything that's left will be well and truly dead and rotten, and then I can put compost back on and we'll have another crack next year. Hugelkultur take 2. Well, I've had Charlotte potatoes out for a good few weeks now, but this is Desiree and they're a main crop and they're just starting to really die back now. So I thought I'd just open one of these up because we'd run out of Charlottes in the house and just see what stage they're at. Hopefully we've got some reasonable sized potatoes and then we can be eating those over the next couple of days or weeks. So let's get one of these open and see what we've got. I'm just going to do my usual trick of saving the compost as I go along, just so that I've got it ready for next year. So I'll hook this one out and we'll work on him, see what's going on. that's a reasonable amount of potatoes. Certainly keep us going for a few days. But every single one of these Desiree potatoes has got that blemish on the face of it. And that scab, as far as I'm aware, I don't know very much about it at all. I'm not going to mix that compost with the rest of my compost until I understand what it is. Now these are perfectly edible. I'm going to peel these anyway. It would have been nice to have had a nice smooth skin, but it's not the end of the world. But I do need to find out what's going on so I can prevent it if I can. And every single one of them has got it. So, well, I'll clean those up. I'm just going to push it. It comes off really easy, and it does leave, well, a little bit of a blemished area underneath. So we'll be using these quite quick. And I probably need to get into one of these other buckets and just see if it's the same with them. So I'll have a quick look and see what's going on. Okay, well, I'm just going to take the surface off of this because I don't need more potatoes just now, but I do want to see what's happening. So there's a potato. There's two. And yes, exactly the same, if not a little bit worse than the one I've just opened. So it may be that I need to harvest all these and get them used quite quickly. But if you know a lot about potatoes and this particular scab, then, well, let me know in the comments below. Wow, it's suddenly got a lot warmer. I've been putting these odd trays and root trainers up on the top of this container just to dry them out a little bit because it's time to get them in. I'm moving things gradually into the polytunnel, and all of these benefit from not being out in the winter months because it gives them a bashing and then gradually they break. These are particularly brittle, these sort of clamshell type root trainers, but I do like them and they're worth making last as long as possible. So I'm going to just tidy them round and get them into the polytunnel with all my other really useful trays. So you know, when you start doing this sort of thing, that the cooler months are coming, and certainly for the last few days here it has been an awful lot cooler. Right, I think I'm ready to go off to the tunnel. Well, I'll pop these in here and they'll dry out nicely over the next few days. I'm surprised, even though it's overcast outside, when I opened the doors in here, a real push of heat came out the doors. So it's still very warm in here and you need to keep making sure things are watered. So that's next on my agenda. Make sure everything's set up for the day. Lots of people are indicating that if you're getting problems with tomatoes, one of the key things is to pick them while they're just turning. And I'm certainly doing that a lot and finding it to be successful. It just makes sure your tomatoes aren't damaged. And to be honest with you, they ripen and taste just as good when they've been in the house for a few days. And these house dwarf cherry tomatoes are just incredible for prolific tomato production. So look out for these if you're at all interested in growing this sort of tomato. And I'm going to pick a few of the plum tomatoes that are just turning now and make sure that they too don't get damaged in any way. And well, we'll be making pasta sauce, I suspect, because we seem to have quite a lot of tomatoes on the go at the moment. And there's another one just in there. Let's have a look at these plums. Well, this year's been a good year for me in terms of deciding what tomatoes I'm going to grow in the future, because, well, Lata and House have been so successful, and these plum tomatoes, wow, you get such a bang for your buck. Look at the size of them. So I'm definitely going to grow those again. So I think for me next year It's going to be Roma, I think this is called, a plum tomato, Lata and House. Fantastic. Well, I think it's time to get this rosemary in. And, well, these were taken from cuttings. And there's another one down here. One's been grown indoors, this one, and this one's been outdoors. And to be fair, I think this one was a little bit bigger to start with, but both fantastic rosemary bushes now. And you can take your own cuttings and get these going real easy, and it's worth a while. They're lovely with a bit of roast potato just sprinkled on top and put in the oven. Just gives it a fantastic flavour. Good times. Well, we've nearly had our fill of courgettes. There's still more coming all the time. And I noticed this morning when I was in here, there was a few that I really shouldn't leave any longer because they get to be just marrows, but that's perfect. There's another one there. Well, that's me pretty much done for today. I hope you had a good weekend of gardening and that you're getting plenty of crops, and that, well, the rain hasn't spoiled your plans, because it does sound like it's coming in these parts, that's for sure. And I was really interested talking to Danny in my last video. It's great to hear other people's views, and he's certainly got a lot of work ahead of him. But he said to me he's looking at pulling together his own YouTube channel. So that'd be fantastic. I'll certainly keep an eye out, and when he lets me know that he's progressing, I'll give you a link. In the meantime, hope everything's going well on your plot. I've got quite a big harvest to take home, and this time of year, that's invariably always the way. And sometimes Mrs. K says, fantastic, and sometimes she says, oh no, not courgettes again. That's the way it is.